Welcome to the Block Captain Orientation. My name is Lee Howard. I've been a block captain. I now am one of the leaders for the block captains in Mariner Cove on the east side of Corte Madera. And I'd like to share with you what I've learned about block captainhood. I'm a grandmother and a great-grandmother, and this is my first video I've ever made, so please be patient with that. Thank you, volunteers, for raising your hands and being willing to be a block captain. You are the backbone of the NRG program. NRG stands for Neighborhood Response Group, is a neighbor helping neighbor program after a major disaster. Now, during normal times, we'd be having this orientation in person in a big room or maybe in someone's living room. And you would receive a folder of all the information I'm going to share with you today. So don't worry about writing anything down. And you would have a chance to do Q&A, which obviously we're not going to do today. But we're in shelter in place right now. The virus has forced all of us away from any kind of a public meeting. And so we're resorting to a video. You'll still hear all the information that's going to be in your folder. The coordinator of the NRG program, Rachel Kurtz, will get your folders to your leader, and your leader will give them out to you. And trust me, you'll find everything I'm going to talk about today. So today, I'm going to try to cover both scenarios. You as a block captain during shelter in place, and you as a block captain in normal times when you can be out and with people. Hopefully by now, your steering committee or your leader has given you a list of the homes in your neighborhood for which you're responsible, the addresses of the people in your cluster. Each NRG is divided up into clusters, and you are in charge of one of them as the block captain. You're not alone. We urge you super strongly to have 2 block captains per cluster. The reason for this is, in a major earthquake, maybe only one of you can get home. And the second reason is share the workload. It makes it so much easier if you can share. Now, this is what you're going to find in your file folder that Rachel will get to you. You're going to find a list of roles and responsibilities for block captains, and that's everything we're going to talk about here today. You're going to find a list of suggested supplies for your backpack. Sadly, we don't give you a backpack. But the supplies, I'm sure you have one in your house, and the supplies that you put in it are things that will be in your house, like a flashlight, gloves, that sort of thing. You will also find in that folder materials for recording injuries and hazards that you might find when you go out of your house to monitor your cluster after a major earthquake. You'll also find a red vest that says block captain on it. Now, this is important because, number one, with the chaos that will be in the streets after a major earthquake, people will know that you're the block captain. And number two, if you're a little old lady like I am and you're traumatized after a major earthquake, chances are you're not going to open your door to just anybody. And you see that red vest and you'll know it's your block captain and you'll trust that person. That's what Rachel is going to get for you. Now, your leader of your NRG is going to get you things. Hopefully, they're going to get you a map of your whole NRG with the clusters circled and delineated by color or in some other way. So this is Mariner Cove map. We have 23 clusters. Each has a different color. And hopefully the street numbers will be on your cluster. Now, why do you need to know about the other clusters in your NRG? Remember what we said about not being able to get home, and that's why we have 2 block captains? Well, what if neither block captain can get home in a cluster? In that case, command, another group of your neighbors, may call you and say, Lee Howard in cluster 1, could you please, when you're done with your work, would you please go over to cluster 3 and check on them? Because neither block captain is there. And then I'll pull out my map and I'll find where cluster 3 is. And they might even say, would you go to number 17 in that cluster? because an elderly person lives there in a wheelchair and they should be checked on first. So that's why you need that map. And we've already said we hope that you have the addresses of the people in your cluster, and they should be your immediate neighbors. You will also be given by your leader a packet of material for each resident in your cluster. Rachel will get these to your leader, and your leader will get them to you. Black captains only muster in a major earthquake. Yep, we have wildfires. Yep, we have public safety power shutoffs. We'll call those PSPS. But the only time we ask you to go out to work is after a major earthquake. The roads are gone. All communication wires are down. No one's going anywhere. Everyone in Marin is going to be sheltering in place. So here's what we ask you to do before a major earthquake. Attend an orientation session. Check that off your list. You're right here today, so you're done with this. Number 2, we ask you to work the 2 drills we hold during the year. All NRGs drill on the days we change our clock. So it's always on a Sunday, and it's always from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. So I'm going to ask you, will you go right now, when you're done with this orientation, will you go find your calendar and find November 1st, because that's the next one, and write it in. Your calendar gets as packed as mine does, and we need to know that we can depend on you. Why are drills so important? We only do them twice a year. The major earthquake comes, everyone's going to go into a state of shock, a state of trauma. Once you begin to breathe again and you calm down, you say to yourself, okay, now, what am I supposed to do in this drill? How do I set up my radio? So this is why we have the drills. November 1st, on your calendar, please. We ask you to get information to each resident in your cluster. Now, under normal times, we would ask you to knock on the door, ring the doorbell, introduce yourself, make a date to sit down in that person's living room with them. And remember, we're talking 2 block captains per cluster, so you probably only have 10 houses to do that, and your other block captain takes the other 10. I can hear the gulp in your throat, and I can hear the thud in your stomach at the thought of having to go into your neighbors' homes and share information with them. Tell them how they can help themselves in a major earthquake, how you will help them, how the program will help them, and give them materials. So we all have this. Before I went out for my first, second, third time, I had that thud in my stomach. But we've made a video to try to help you. Now, I said this was my first video. Well, I made one before. If you go to www.nrgmarin.org, you will find our website. On the website, after you've opened it up, at the top, find the part that says Training and Events, pull down Training, and there you'll find the video. It's a video just like this of a little old lady telling you how to do that resident visit, starting before you even step out your door until you walk out. And just briefly, what you do in that visit is you give them the information that's in the packet and you go through it with them. That's the ideal way to do it. Now, absolute ideal thing is at the end of that video, you've told them how you're going to help them, how they help themselves. You've given them a sign that says okay on one side and help on the other, so that they can communicate with the outside world after a major earthquake. Very end of that visit, if you do it in person, ask them to fill out the information form. Tell them we have a database on everyone in this NRG, and the only reason we have it is so that in a major earthquake, we know who should be in that house, what age the kids should be in that house. We have your contact information in case we need to get a hold of you. And we have information on medical needs or special needs of people in the house. Don't leave the form with them. They will say to you, oh, sure, I'll drop it off in your mailbox. Trust me on this one, they won't. I've done 405 of these earthquake talks, and they never come back. So wait until they fill it out. That's in normal times. But now we're in shelter in place, virus times. So you're going to leave that packet under their doormat on their front porch, and you're going to put a cover letter on it. Rachel's going to give you a sample of the cover letter. And it says, "Hi, I'm Lee Howard. I'm your block captain. Our neighborhood now has a neighborhood response program which will help you and your family in a disaster. I ask you to read the information inside this packet, and then in the self-addressed stamped envelope, fill out the information form and use that envelope and return it to me." Now, here's the good news. In the last 3 months, and I'm talking to you now, block captains, in the last 3 months, I've had to leave 8 packets on new residents' doorsteps, crossing my fingers. 7 came back. I got 7 returned envelopes with the information forms in them. So it does work. And you better believe I'm going to chase down number 8. I'm going to be a major naggy pain in the neck. But I will chase them down. So this does work. It's not ideal. It's not ideal at all. What do you do with that information sheet when you get it? Well, you can make a copy of it for yourself, and then you give it to the person on your steering committee who's your database guru. And that person will take the information sheets from everyone in your cluster and create an information sheet just for you. And you need to tell people, and this is in the packet too, no one will have your information except this program. We don't share this with anybody. So this is a sample of what you might get afterwards. It'll have names, it'll have the years kids were born, it'll have contact information, and it will have medical needs. It also will ask if the resident has any training in disasters or any medical training, and that's how you get your medical teams later on. So, what are we asking you to do before an earthquake? 2 drills, visit the homes, or leave a packet. One easy job for all of you, because I know you're all technically skilled, much more than I am. Create an email cluster list. Once you get your data from the people in your cluster, create an email cluster list, because there will be many times that the people on your steering committee ask you to disseminate information to your neighbors. And so they'll, block captains, please send out this message about the upcoming drill, which might tell people to put their OK signs in the window, that sort of thing. So that's easy. I know you can do that. Some NRGs ask one more thing of their block captains before a disaster. Once a year, they ask them to contact the residents and their cluster and ask if there have been any changes in email, changes in phone number, was a baby born? And this is the way you get your data up to current status, which is really vital because you need to know who's supposed to be in that house. So easy, right? Drills, visit or packet, email cluster list. A year from now, going back and checking on data. All right, now we've had the major earthquake. You will know it's a major earthquake. There'll be no doubt in your mind whatsoever. It's not a picture tipper. The roads are down, communication lines are down, maybe part of your house is down. Your very first job is to take care of your home and your family. If that takes 2 hours, fine. If that takes 2 days, fine. That is your first responsibility. While you're doing that, we suggest put your radio on, because you can hear the block captains in your NRG beginning to call in for what they find. And you'll have a sense of what's going on in your NRG. Hopefully it's all okay. Everybody says everybody's fine. But maybe not. And then you'll have a little clue about what you might find when you go out. So now you're ready to go out. You put on that vest and you put on your backpack with all your materials and your equipment in it. Get your radio, get your database of who should be in each house, and get that recording material that Rachel's going to get to you. And go out and begin to walk your cluster. That's your job. Your job is to monitor your cluster and report to the command team what you find. Look for OK signs. If you see an okay sign in the window, just walk right by the house. Get them on the second round. They don't need you right now. If there's no sign, or if help is showing, you go up and bang on the door. Hey, it's your block captain. Anybody in there need help? How you doing? Do you need help? Whatever you find, you're going to record on your sheet. Hopefully, if each address is on your sheet, hopefully you're going to say, okay, but maybe not, maybe not. Record the injuries and hazards you find. Do your entire cluster, come back and get those okay guys on the second round, and then make your call to your command team to give your report. Now, the reason we say that is you're going to have many block captains in your NRG. And if everyone calls in with a report on each house, as they hit that house, it's going to be bedlam. So wait until you've gone all the way around and then call in, unless, and this is a big unless, if you run into a dire situation, a life-threatening situation, I'm not talking about burns, I'm not talking about broken bones, I'm talking about a fire or a bleed out. That kind of situation has to be called in right away to control. Now you've got other block captains who are calling in. How the heck are you going to have your turn? Everybody has to breathe. There's always that little space, excuse me, between one person reporting and command acknowledging that report. That's when you jump in. Emergency, emergency, break in, break in. The command team will say, block captain, stand down. Lee Howard, cluster 1, go ahead. What's your emergency? And that's when you report it. So 12 years ago, we started this program in Marina Cove on the east side of Corte Madera. And after we were in business for about a year, our block captains came to us and they said, you know what, Lee? The people in my cluster are my neighbors. They're my friends. If there's a first aid type problem going on, I'd like to know how to solve it. What can you do for us? So we went to this big group of about 400 members called the Marin Medical Reserve Corps. As I said, they're mostly people with medical background. And we said, can you help us? Sure, they said. So they designed a 4-hour class called First Aid for Disaster Response, FADR, FADR. If you go back to our website, nrgmarin.org, under calendar, you can see when the classes are scheduled. Obviously, there's no classes right now because no one can have public meetings, but they will come back on board. I tell you this, every one of the people I've talked to who have taken this class, and there have been hundreds who have taken the class, have said to me, Lee, this was exactly what I wanted. It tells me how to deal with broken bones, breathing problems, and bleeding problems. And this is what I'm going to find after a major earthquake. Now, even doctors and nurses who have been in the business for a long time, but they've been in specialty areas, right? They've taken that course to refresh themselves, and they say to me, you know what? This was exactly what I needed. I forgot all that stuff. This was great. So I really urge you to consider taking that FADR class. Up to 9 years ago, that's where we were. We were kind of patting ourselves on the back a little bit because we learned as we went along. We made plenty of mistakes. We went from plan A, B, C, D, and we said, okay, major earthquake comes. Now we're set. And 3 years ago, the wildfires started. So we now added wildfire to our disaster preparation. But that's all it is. It's disaster preparation. It is not block captain response. Remember that visit that you're either going to make in person to the resident or you're going to leave the packet on their door? You are going to give them in that packet a wildfire preparation and response information. It will tell them how to sign up for alertmarin.org, which is the communication system that our local fire people are going to use to tell us when a wildfire is coming and when to get out of Dodge, when to evacuate. It will suggest to them what items they should take a big duffel called a grab-and-go bag and stick in that duffel the stuff that their family needs to get them through a day. Put that duffel in the closet. that's fine. It's done. It's out of sight. But hitched to the handle of that duffel, then is they should put their 10-minute list. The 10-minute list will have things they don't want to put in the closet, like their computer and their cell phone, things of that sort. So they get the evacuation notice. They're in a state of panic, and they get their bag, they get their 10-minute list, they get in their car, and they evacuate. You do the same with your family. But here's a but. You know there was a button there, right? If you feel comfortable doing so, bang on the door of the neediest residents in your cluster. This would be the 93-year-old who might not have the technical skills to sign up for Alert Marin, might not even know that he's supposed to evacuate. It might be someone in a wheelchair. You do not have to evacuate these people, but you need to be sure that they know that they need to get out, they need to evacuate. If you feel comfortable doing that, that's not a must. If there's an evacuation at night, as you're getting into your car, put your car alarm on. Put your hand on the horn while you're driving down the street. All your neighbors will wake up and they go, oh, those darn teenagers, what are they doing now? And they'll run to the window and look out. Oh, okay, emergency. I need to get out of here. So that's all we ask you to do in a wildfire. We thought we were done then, but we were wrong. Then came PSPS, right? And last summer, there were some pretty lengthy power shutoffs. When you make that visit or when you leave the packet, there's another paper in there. And it tells people to prepare for a power shutoff. If you're doing this in person, you can just go over it with them. One question is, do you rely on refrigeration to keep your medicines cold? If the answer is yes, then the instructions in there, send them to REI. REI has bags for campers, and you take that bag, you put your insulin in it, you run it under cold water, and it keeps the medicine cold for 2 or 3 days. 3 days later, put it back under the water, and it renews the coldness again. Many people don't know about that because they're not campers. If a person is reliant on electricity for machines to keep themselves alive, you need to say to that person, you need a plan. You need a serious plan. I'm your block captain, and I'm not going to help you with this, but you need to come up with this on your own. We mostly suggest you get a backup generator, not a gas generator. People tend to put them on their wooden decks, light them up. Now they've got 2 problems. Battery operated generator, or someone who will come pick you up and get you to a place where there's electricity. Once again, it's not your job to do that. But here's a really nice thing that happened. Last summer, when those PSPS durations went on forever, block captains took it upon themselves to go to the homes of their neediest people and knock on the door and say, hey, how you doing? I'm your block captain. Remember me? For the most part, everybody was doing fine. They had followed the advice and they had themselves backed up with power. When they weren't, then the block captain called the police, and the police came and helped them solve the problems. So nobody died and nobody went into a state of medical emergency. Again, we don't ask you to make those home visits during a PSPS. I'm just saying, I'm just sharing what has been done. Next thing I want to talk to you about are radios. Radios cost money, and if you do not have an HOA that's going to give you money, then during that home visit, if you do it in person, is the time to ask for funds. You can say something like, this is a pretty good program, right? And this is going to help you and maybe even save your life or your family's life. We need money for radios and maybe some photocopying. And the resident will say, okay, how much you're asking for? And you can say $10, $20 a household, whatever you feel comfortable contributing will be welcome. Get that money to your steering committee and they will write a thank you note and they will go out and they will buy the radios. Once you have your radios in your NRG, then there will be workshops. At this point, they're probably going to be Zoom workshops. And they will tell you how to put the batteries in, how to set up your radio, how to get on the right channel. They'll teach you radio protocol so that you know how to how to deliver a terse and accurate message. One last thing. If you're in a home or if you're talking to a neighbor 6 feet apart about the program, and that neighbor is sort of leaning forward and really focusing on what you're saying, that neighbor maybe has some good questions to ask you. Say to that neighbor at the very end, you seem as if you're really interested in preparation and response for disaster in our neighborhood. May I give your name and your contact information to our steering committee? And one of them can call and talk to you about some roles that are still open and we still need people to fill them. And if the person says yes, then go ahead and do it. Recruitment comes in many, many forms, but that's a darn good one. I've gotten some really good workers that way. And again, the person shows the interest. I'm done. That's it. It's a long session here on this video, and I've laid a lot of information on you. Your leader has my name and my email. I am very happy to answer any questions for you. I'm sorry it couldn't be a Zoom where you could ask me right away, but our Zoom meetings tend to have people with computer problems and things can go south in a hurry. So go to your leader and either ask Rachel Kurtz, he has her information also, or me, and we'll get right back to you. Thank you so much for paying attention and welcome to the world of block captains.